Hey everybody, out here in the cabin. I needed a little change of scenery today. I don't know about you, but sometimes you just got to mix it up a little bit, right? So I'm out here getting some work done. And I wanted to jump on here and shoot this quick video because I've been thinking about something for the past couple days now. And I just thought it would be helpful and useful for all of us that are in a relationship. I don't know if you can see my breath while I'm talking. It's a little chilly out here. The fire hasn't been going very long yet. So it's not an added effect. It really is that cold out here, but we'll get there. But, you know, it's interesting because this past weekend was daylight savings, and it's been fun to watch everybody posting about their daylight savings and how much they hate losing an hour and the torture that it is for those of us with young kids and things like that. And, you know, with the daylight savings, and last week in and of itself, there was a couple really warm days that were a little bit of a tease that spring is on the way, right? But I think that with that warmer temperature and with that daylight savings time adjustment, it's giving us a perspective that a season is about to change, right? We're about to come out of winter and hopefully sooner than later, step into spring. And there's this new season that's coming. You know, I think that's important for us to understand in the context of our relationships too. Because what we need to understand is this. Oftentimes in relationships, we go through seasons, right? One of the things that we talk about with a lot of the couples that we work with regularly is that we need to understand that in our relationships, you're going to go through seasons, right? Nothing ever grows year round. I think it was Rick Warren say that once at a conference I was at. He said, you need to understand that nothing grows year round. There's a reason for every season, right? Not to quote the cheesy Christian statement, but there is a reason in every season. But in our relationships, we face seasons. And what I think we need to understand in these seasons is that we need to embrace the season and not see it as a sentence. Now, what I mean by that is we tend to think when we hit these rough patches in our relationship or we go through these difficult moments in our lives that this is a sentence, right? A sentence is something that is permanent. It's going to last for a long time. It's going to be something that really affects you not in a great way. It almost feels like a punishment, right? When I hear the word sentence, I think of a prisoner, I think of going to jail, things like that. But you know, the interesting thing is I think a lot of times as husbands and wives and in life in general, when we face these difficult moments, we tend to look at them as sentences, right? I'm being punished. I'm being, disconnected. I'm not able to do what I want to do. But I think the shift that we need to make in our relationships and in our minds is to embrace the season and not see it as a sentence. Right? What takes place in our minds when we do that is something really significant, because when you view something as a season, now you can start to say, okay, what can I embrace about this season? You see, when we look at life or we look at difficult moments or we look at trials or struggles in our relationship as a sentence, what we tend to do is just look at what we don't have or what we wish we could get to or what we hope we step into at some point. So we're always looking outside of what we're experiencing inwardly in that moment. But when we look at something as a season, now what happens is we fix our attention and we fix our focus and kind of flip it to understand, okay, what about this season can I embrace? And I have some good friends that their busy time with their jobs is spring and summer and fall. And so they tend to take the winter time and they've embraced that season as their season where they can go and have fun, where they can do things that they wouldn't be able to do during the time where they're working like crazy. And I think that's a great picture of what it looks like to embrace the season, because these friends could be sitting there in spring and summer and fall, and if they're looking at their situation as a sentence, all they're looking at is, okay, I can't do this, or I don't have this yet. I wish I could go do that. I wish I could go do this. But instead they've said, okay, in the winter, that's the season that I'm going to embrace because that's the opportunity that I've been given. So what can I do in this season? And I think in our relationships, when we embrace them as seasons, we do just that. Instead of looking at where we're not or where we wish we were, when we embrace the season over the sentence, we can start saying, what about this moment can bring benefit, can bring growth, can bring encouragement, can bring fill in the blank. And so I just want to encourage you, as you're going through your life, as you're going through your marriage or your relationship or things like that, I want to ask you to ask yourself this: am I viewing where I'm at right now as a season or a sentence? And if you're embracing it as a season, ask yourself this follow-up question: what can I embrace about this season? You know, silly example, right? I used to hate the winter time, right? It's cold. You can't do a lot of stuff outside. I like to be outdoors, whatever it is. But, you know, just a couple years ago, I built this, right? My little escape, my little backyard cabin, so to speak. And what that did was it helped me embrace this season, because now I can do things in the wintertime that I couldn't do when it's hot, right? I've had guys come over to hang out. The kids and I spend some extra time out here. It's a great place to just get away and reflect and clear my head. But if I just looked at the wintertime and said, this time stinks, there's nothing you can do, I wish it was summer, or I wish it was spring, or I wish it was fall, I wish it was whatever, I would totally have missed the ability to enjoy this season of life. So what does that look like in your relationship? Well, let's say you're in the midst of a difficult season right now in your relationship. Instead of saying, I wish we were all the way down here, now we can embrace something in this season that we're in. So for instance, if you and your wife are struggling and you're feeling like we're just not connecting, maybe you can embrace this season and say, you know what? We're going to embrace this time as an opportunity to grow together. We're going to create intentional time, just the two of us, to spend together so that we can draw closer together. Maybe you're sitting here and you're in the midst of a difficult season because you just feel depressed, you just feel upset, you just feel frustrated, whatever it may be. Well, if you embrace this season, you can say, okay, here's what I can embrace in this moment. I can now intentionally take the time to spend more moments, more opportunity in prayer, in community, in connection with God, reading, growing personally, whatever that may be. You can embrace that season and ask yourself and ask God to show you, what about this season can I use and use for my benefit that I couldn't do or I wouldn't have in other seasons of my life? So I just want to encourage you in your lives, in your relationships, in whatever it may be, to look at your season as a season and not a sentence. Don't look at where you're at now and say, if only I could get to there, life would be so much better, I would be so much happier. Is it good to have goals? Absolutely. Should you strive for goals? Absolutely. But don't become so consumed and so focused on where you wish you were that you miss the opportunities of where you're at. So instead of looking at your moment as a sentence, look at it as a season and embrace the season for what it